2005 FA Cup final has two distinctions. It was the first to be settled by a penalty shootout, but it was also watched by a staggeringly large audience. Across the world, 484 million people tuned in to see Jens Lehmann save Paul Scholes' penalty shot, and then, with the decisive kick, Patrick Vieira sweep his penalty home to win the cup for Arsenal. It was a heavyweight clash contested by footballing royalty, but it was a game watched by people from everywhere, from all walks of life. And that kind of appeal comes not only from the competition's rich history, but also the princes and paupers behind its great tales and its harmonies of triumph and tragedy. Wimbledon remain an underdog for the ages. New to the professional leagues in 1977, it would take their band of roguish, unfancied and underrated players just 11 years to reach an FA Cup final. And they didn't just reach an FA Cup final, they won one. Dave Besant saved John Aldridge's penalty, Laurie Sanchez headed in Dennis Wise's free kick, and by a 0-0, Wimbledon beat Liverpool. The Crazy Gang defeated the Culture Club. You see, in the FA Cup, everyone has a puncher's chance. In 2015, Radford City landed a blow heard around the world. They were 6th in League One when they travelled to face Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, and within 38 minutes, they were 2 goals down and heading out at the 4th round. But they would storm back, scoring 4 unanswered goals against Jose Mourinho's defence, dumping the Premier League leaders out and inflicting upon them their first home defeat of the season. In 2017, the National League's Lincoln City put even more noses out of joint. They were from the 5th level of English football, and they beat Altrincham from the league below, Oldham from the division above, and then Ipswich Town from the Championship before amazingly finding an 89th minute winner to knock out Premier League Burnley, becoming the first non-league side in 103 years to reach the quarter-final. You see, the cup belongs to the underdogs, to the unknown teams and to the unheard of players. And sometimes it's to those who have been long forgotten about. Mickey Thomas knew what the summit of the game looked like, and he'd been a wonderful footballer. He played for Manchester United, Everton and Chelsea during his prime. But by 1992, and at the age of 37, he was back at hometown club Wrexham, all the way down in the 4th division, when the mighty Arsenal were in town. And the 5'6" Thomas had just enough magic left in his boots for the occasion, equalising with a thunderous free kick past David Seaman and leading a team of youthful waifs and strays to a stunning 2-1 win. By contrast, part-time player, part-time carpenter Ronnie Radford had a prime that was easy to miss. But nobody would ever forget him after a cold February day in 1972, when Newcastle United travelled to Hereford's Edgar Street for a third-round replay. On a swamp of a pitch, Newcastle took a late lead. But with 5 minutes left, Radford smashed the Southern League side level, finding the top corner from 35 yards away. Hereford would eventually win the tie. Radford would win that year's goal of the season. And at the final whistle, for the 3rd time that day, jubilant Hereford fans spilled out onto the pitch, submerging their players under a sea of bell-bottomed trousers and 1970s facial hair. But you see, mutton chops and moustaches were nothing new for the cup. In fact, they were part of its original history. In 1879, the Old Etonians would win the first of their 2 cups, defeating Clapham Rovers 1-0. They would finish runners-up in the tournament 4 times, but would win again in 1882, and as in 79, did so under the captaincy of the 11th Lord Kinnard, who would later serve as president of the Football Association for 33 years. As a player, Kinnard would win the competition 5 times in total, twice with the Old Etonians and 3 times with the Wanderers Club. And that record would stand all the way until it was broken by Chelsea's Ashley Cole. But Stan Mortenson's record may never be broken. He scored a hat-trick in the 1953 final, and nobody has done so since. In 2018, the ball that he scored those 3 goals with was sold at auction. It had been raffled in 1989 at a benefit dinner to Mortenson, and then led a strange life over the next 20 years. The winner of the raffle gave the ball as a gift to her brother, who in turn offered it in gratitude to an electrician who came out to fix a fault on Christmas Day. It would then pass between the electrician and a close friend, and then it would be handed down from father to son, before finally fetching over £5,000 at auction. It was a precious item from one of the most famous matches in the sport's history, but it wasn't the most valuable. You see, the boots worn by Stanley Matthews in that game commanded £38,000, and Matthews' winner's medal, the one he'd promised his father he'd win before he died, would be sold for £240,000 in 2014. But sometimes, though, the worth of what happens on Cup Final Day can't be measured. In 1958, ravaged by the tragedy of the Munich air disaster, Manchester United somehow made it to Wembley. They'd been there a year before, losing 1-0 to Aston Villa, but 6 members of that side had lost their lives in February 1958, 8 United players in total, and their manager, Matt Busby, was still recovering from his injuries. But the story didn't end as it was supposed to. A Bolton side led by Nat Lofthouse would win 2-0, overcoming a team containing 4 players who had survived the crash just 3 months earlier. In 1989, however, the FA Cup final would provide a city with respite from a tragedy. The Hillsborough disaster, which occurred during a FA Cup semi-final with Nottingham Forest, would ultimately claim the lives of 96 Liverpool fans. In the weeks following, the Liverpool players would not only navigate their remaining fixtures and win the rearranged semi-final, they would attend many of the funerals. Manager Kenny Dalglish even attended 4 in one day. Goalkeeper Bruce Grobbelaar, who had been the closest player as the tragedy developed, even considered retirement in the aftermath. But on the 20th of May 1989, 6 weeks after Hillsborough, Dalglish, Grobbelaar and the rest of the Liverpool players walked out to face Everton in front of nearly 83,000 people. It was the Merseyside final, played out in front of 2 halves of the same grieving community. Before kickoff, Jerry Marsden led both ends of the ground in a rendition of You'll Never Walk Alone, in one of the most touching moments Wembley ever witnessed. And then Liverpool won 3-2 after extra time as the sun shone down. Support for this Tifo video was brought to you by the Emirates FA Cup, and you can follow the action on their social channels.